Hi everyone, in this video we're going to learn how to make the half double crochet stitch right here, and we're going to learn how to do that worked into both loops, which is this green yellow swatch, as well as into the back loops or just into the front loops, and also into just the third loops of the previous row. Let's get started. For today's demo, I'm going to be making a swatch that is 10 half double crochet stitches across. So to get started, I've made my slip knot, and then now I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chain stitches for my foundation chain. So if you need to review how to make a slip knot or how to make that chain stitch, I go into a lot more detail in the previous video on how to work that single crochet stitch back and forth in rows. So go check that out if you need to review. But for the half double crochet stitch, same as with single crochet, we want to make one extra chain at the end for our turning chain. So let me go ahead and do that. So that's chain number 11. And that again is just going to provide a little bit of extra ease at the ends of our row so that our very first stitch doesn't end up squashed. So for our first stitch, we're going to skip that first chain and we're going to attach our first stitch into the second one. And for this, I'm also going to work just into that back loop of the V, so this one right here, not that front loop, since that's going to be a little bit easier to do as we go along. So for our first stitch, which is going into here, we're going to do a yarn over first before we insert the hook into that chain. So I've done that, and now I'm going to slide the hook into the chain, same as I would do for a single crochet stitch, except now since I've done that extra yarn over before going in, I've got 3 loops or 2 loops and 1 stitch on my hook. Next, I'm going to yarn over again, and then I'm going to pull up a loop back through the stitch I just went into. So like that. That'll be the same motion you did when you were working your single crochet stitches. So now I've got 3 loops on my hook again, and then to finish off the stitch, I'm going to yarn over one last time, and then I'm going to pull this new yarn through all 3 of these loops, like that. So that is 1 half double crochet stitch. So now that we're past our turning chain, we are no longer going to skip chains, and we're going to work 1 half double crochet stitch into each of these chain stitches going across. So let's do a few more. So the next one I'm going into is here, but before I insert the hook, I'm going to yarn over and then insert. Now I'm going to yarn over again. I'm going to pull up a loop just through that topmost loop here, or just through the stitch that I went into, to have 3 loops on the hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull that through all 3 loops. So again, I'll find the next chain that I'm going to go into. I'm going to make sure I'm just going to slide that back loop onto my hook. But first, we're going to do our yarn over. So now we insert the hook, yarn over again, pull up a loop back through the stitch to have 3 loops, yarn over one last time, and pull through all 3 loops. So that is my 3rd half double crochet stitch. For the next one, I'm going to work into this next empty chain stitch. Same as with single crochet, a lot of times when you're working into the foundation chain, there'll be a little bit of a gap underneath the stitches that you've completed, and you want to make sure you don't accidentally work an extra stitch into here, because then you'll end up with a growing number of stitches in each row, and instead of a nice rectangle, you'll end up with a trapezoid. So just make sure before you go in to a gap that it's not a stitch or a loop that's already got something here hanging onto it. So next half double crochet, let's do that together. Yarn over, insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over a second time, pull up a loop through the stitch, yarn over a third time, and pull up a loop through the 3 loops. Next half double crochet stitch, yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over a second time, pull up a loop through that stitch, yarn over a third time, and pull up a new loop through the 3 loops that are on the hook. Yarn over, insert the hook into the next chain, yarn over again, pull up a loop through that chain, yarn over again, and pull that through all 3 of those loops. Yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop through the stitch, yarn over, and pull through 3 loops. So same as with that pull through 2 loop step on the single crochet stitch, to make it easier to guide everything through all 3 of those loops, try and keep your hook parallel to the top of the row you're working, so don't twist it too much in either direction. And as you're going through, try and turn the head of the hook so it's facing the base of those loops. And if you need to, you can kind of scoop it through. But again, keeping that hook angle in line with the top of the row. So it'll look something like that. So let's do that last one. Again, we do have that little nub there from our slip knot, and this will be our last chain. So let's yarn over, go into that last stitch, yarn over again to pull up a loop, yarn over a third time, and pull that through 3 loops. So here we have our first completed row of half double crochet stitches. So here is the front side of that row of stitches we've just completed. So it looks like that from the front. Again, the tail that we started with is over here. And if we look at the top edge, you can see it looks just like the top edge of a chain stitch or a single crochet stitch with that row of V's. And to count our half double crochet stitches, it's the same thing, where we'll just look for those letter V's and count them down the row. So this here is our first one. It should get evened out after we add another row or 2. So that's stitch number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then here we have our working loop. So to start our next row, now that we know we have the expected 10 half double crochet stitches, we're going to make our extra turning chain. So for that, we're just going to do our regular chain stitch. So yarn over, and pull up a loop. And then we're going to need to reset our row so we're on that same side. So you're going to take that far end of the row, make sure that your working yarn is out of the way towards the back, flip the row over, and set up your grip again. So for half double crochet stitch, one thing to notice is while we do have that familiar row of V's at the top, because of that extra loop that we made, which is showing up here on these kind of diagonal loops, we have another row of V's on this back face of the row. So this is the one for the side of the row, and this is the one for the top of the row. So when you're placing your new stitches, just make sure the one you're looking at is the actual top edge and not this one on the side. So to remember that, the top edge is the one where the V's are pointing in the direction that you're going. The V's on the side are going to be pointing towards your hook. So for our regular half double crochet stitch worked through both loops of the previous row, instead of going through just this back loop like we did for that chain at the beginning, we're going to insert our hook from the front face of our row, slide both arms of that V onto the hook, and then attach our stitch to both of those. So for that first stitch in our second row, we are again going to skip this turning chain and place it in the second stitch from the hook. So we'll do our first yarn over. We'll slide both loops of that V onto the hook so that when we do our yarn over to pull up a new loop, we're going to pull through the whole stitch, so past both of those loops, so that we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over that last time and pull through all 3. So for our next one, we're not skipping any more stitches. So our next one is going to be right here. So to work that next one, we'll yarn over, we'll slide that whole V onto the stitch, yarn over, we'll pull up a loop back through that stitch we just went into to have 3 loops, yarn over, and then pull that through all 3 of the loops. So again, working into the whole V or into both loops of each stitch in our previous row. So next stitch, let's yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over a second time, pull up a loop back through that stitch, yarn over a third time, and pull up a loop through all 3. So yarn over, insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Yarn over, find that next stitch, slide it on, yarn over, pull up a loop back through that stitch, again making sure we pull all the way up so the hook is clearing the top of that row. We don't want to make it down here. Yarn over a last time and pull that through all 3. So our next one going here. So we'll yarn over, insert into both loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. We're going into here, so we'll yarn over, slide that stitch onto the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. Next one will go here. So we'll yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. We're going into here next. So we'll yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop back through the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop through all three. And we've got our last one here. So I'm going to be putting the hook through here. Again, you want to make sure you're not accidentally grabbing those two loops on the side. You want the two on the top where that pointy end of the V is in the direction that you are crocheting. So yarn over, slide that on, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So here is our completed second row of half double crochet stitches. This time we worked them through both loops of that previous row instead of just into the back loop. Let's do one more row of half double crochet stitches in the same way. So before we start that next row, let's count our stitches and make sure we have 10. So if we're counting this time from the most recently completed side, that first stitch is always going to be whatever the working loop is kind of coming out of. So this right here is stitch 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 half double crochet stitches. So let's do that third row of half double crochet stitches. And we'll start off with our turning chain. So yarn over, pull up a loop to make that extra chain stitch. We'll flip our work over. So grab that far end, turn everything like you're turning a page, and set yourself up again. And we'll work through both loops, so sliding that whole top of the stitch. So we'll skip our turning chain, and our first stitch in this row will be placed right here. So yarn over, slide into that stitch, yarn over a second time, pull up a loop through that stitch, yarn over, and pull through all three. So here's our next one. So we'll yarn over, go into that next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. So if you're looking at things from like the face of the row rather than that top edge, it will look like you are inserting it in between these two arms of that kind of side V, but the intent is to pick up both of these loops on that top edge. So we'll yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop back through the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop through the three loops. So we'll keep doing that all the way to the end of our row. So this is what it looks like when we're partway through. Here we have 6 stitches done and we have 4 stitches remaining. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. For another row of half double crochet stitches, worked through both loops of the previous row. So same as with single crochet or any other stitch really, when you are making your stitches, you get to decide where you're going to attach them. So far we've done through the back loop and through both loops. And you can, of course, go through the front loop like that. So again, because we always want to be stabbing our hook in that direction towards the back of our entire piece, we want to go in from this side and then go out the center of the V when we're working through the front loop. So what that looks like for half double crochet is like this. So for that first stitch, since we do have our turning chain here, we're going to skip that and go into this one. So we'll yarn over first. We'll go into just that front loop. And for the first stitch, if it's a little tricky to kind of tension everything, you can go ahead and use your index finger on the hand holding the hook to kind of keep that first yarn over back as you go into the stitch. And then after that, everything else would be the familiar yarn over, pull back through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 3. So let's go ahead and work one row through just the front loops. So we'll yarn over, go into the next stitch, but instead of going all the way through, we're gonna pop out of the middle like that. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So here's our next stitch that we're attaching to. We'll yarn over, go into that front loop, yarn over, pull back through that front loop, yarn over, pull through 3. So yarn over, go through the front loop, yarn over, pull back through, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. So we've got 2 more. So we're going into this stitch and then into the last stitch. So yarn over, go in just through that front loop, yarn over, pull back through, yarn over, pull through 3 loops, yarn over, let's go into that last stitch, just the front loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. So from this side, it looks the same as when we worked through both loops, but if we look on the opposite side, you can see this set of loops was that back loop that we just let kind of hang out. So that's half double crochet 3 ways, back loop, both loops, and front loop. But since we do have that extra kind of third loop here staring at us, one thing you might see in pattern instructions is to work through the third loop. So for that, instead of picking up the back or the front, all that means is we're going to stick our hook through this lower half of the V that's on the face of our previous row. So we're going to go through here, we're going to go through here, and so on. And it'll be the one that's kind of on top. Sometimes you've got 2 that are bunched together like that. So it'll be the one directly connected with this front loop. So let's work a row through the third loop. So I've already done, again, my turning chain. So I'll yarn over, make sure to skip that, and then I'm going to go into this stitch right here, but instead of going through that front loop, I'm going to go through this third loop. But everything else is exactly the same, so we'll yarn over, pull up a loop back through that stitch, yarn over, pull through all three. So this is our next stitch. We're going to go through this loop here, that third loop. So yarn over, push through, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. So when you're working through that third loop, your new row will be attached more on the side of that previous row rather than on top. So you don't need to pull up that first loop like all the way up like this, then they'll be a little bit loose. You can go ahead and keep that hook a little bit lower. So pull through all three, start our next one, yarn over. We're going to go through this one, the third loop, since that's the one that's closest to the top edge. So not this one. So we'll go in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. So if we take a look here at what's happening, both the front and back loops of that previous row are kind of being pushed forward, and our new row is kind of being attached to the side of the last row. So let's finish this off. So we have 3 more. So 1, 2, and then for our last stitch, so this is the top, and then this is the top, because again, the pointy part of the V is pointing towards the end of the row. And then the third loop for our last one is going to be this guy right here. So go into that, pull up a loop, pull through all three. So that's option number 4, working your half double crochet stitch through that third loop. So if we look kind of on that other side, you can see here we got a fun texture where the front of that previous row is popping out. Because again, where we place the stitch and what stitch we're making are separate choices. So here is a completed swatch of the half double crochet stitch worked into both loops of every row. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows tall and 10 stitches across. And the fabric is reversible, so it looks pretty much the same on both sides when you're working this stitch in rows as well. And to give you a better idea of what it can look like in a less tubular fabric, here are some swatches that were made with a 4.5mm hook and a DK weight yarn. So here's that same one. So again, half double crochet worked into both loops. So this is more structured than the other two. This is half double crochet when you work it just into the back loops. So you can see it has a little bit of a ridge on every other row and is a bit stretchier. So this is another great option for garments, especially sweaters, scarves, that sort of a thing. If you work it in rows vertically, it looks similar to knitted ribbing. And of course we have half double crochet stitch worked into just the front loops of every row. So this one is extra textured versus that single crochet stitch worked in the front loops, because you have both the unworked back loop here, and then on the next row up you have that third loop that's hanging out on the top. And this one's nice and drapey as well. Really fun texture there. So that was front loops only, back loops only, and through both loops. And then bonus, you get the half double crochet stitch worked through that third loop. Again, that's when you're kind of working the next row into the side of the previous row. So everything is like angled in a more extreme way versus that half double crochet stitch into the back loop. But they do look pretty similar. And depending on how tightly you're working this or the structure of the yarn you're working with, it can be more or less pronounced of a difference. So you can see there are some pretty good stretch there as well. All right, so thanks for watching, and up next will be the double crochet stitch.